2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
You go to that first meeting, you find out you're there for yourself because you need to take care of yourself before you can take anyone else.
And they presented the program in a way that we're going to teach you some communication skills and ways to interact with your loved one in a positive way. But the first thing is self-care. You have to do something for you. What have you done? What's the last thing you did for yourself? I couldn't even think of something I had done for myself because I was so hyper-focused on my son and what he was going through and trying to help him get better. That, it was a homework assignment. Go home and do something for you, even if it's take a bubble bath.
So what did you do?
I took a bubble bath.
Nice.
That's my self-care, a nice, warm, hot bubble bath.
Calgon, take me away.
Exactly. Not many people would know that one.
I'm dating myself. Actually, Dr. Matt told me to say it. He's way older than us.
Okay.
So how long did you go to the classes for?
Well, back then, it was over 10 years ago. It was a 4-week class, and they used the book, Get Your Loved One Sober, Alternatives to Nagging, Pleading, and Threatening. And they went through the whole book in 4 weeks. And so it's a continuing class. You can continue going as long as you want. And here it is 10 years later, and not only am I still going, I'm facilitating and running the program now, yeah.
And we're going to get to more about the program a little bit later, but unfortunately, your story takes a bit of a dark turn.
Yes, it does. So within 3 months after I started the group, and this is one great thing about this family support group, it has the family members making changes in their own life. And while you make those changes, your loved one sees those changes and they begin to change. And within 3 months, my son had found a path of recovery of his own. He found a medication called Vivitrol and came to my husband and I and said, I'd really like to try this.
And Vivitrol is a shot, and what it does is that it takes away your cravings, but it works well with alcohol and opioids.
At the point that he had began it hadn't been approved for opioids yet. So his doctor kind of put it in as to help him with his drinking. And so he scoped it out. He found out, that he was still on our insurance. It was very expensive, $1,200 an injection. And he found a copay program, $500 copay program online. He did this all on his own, which kind of brings you back to that, they have to find that their motivation to change and what would work for him. And, my way wasn't the way. He wasn't successful with anything I had presented to him. He had found his own way. So he found this Vivitrol, found the $500 copay program, and started on the Vivitrol. And it was amazing. It took away those cravings. He got his life back, basically. He got a job. He paid off debts that he had many debts, and had done really, really well on it. Unfortunately, he went off the medication, and he was working close with his doctor and made a deal, let's try it for 1 month and see what happens. And within that month, he was working 2 jobs. He had fallen asleep at the wheel and wrecked his car, came home and his girlfriend broke up with him, and, just that little bump in the road. And after 150 days of not using, he had an incidence of use, and it took his life. So that was 7 years ago, and today would be his 30th birthday. That's where the tears come in.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, and we're so sorry, of course, to have you have to come on and tell that part of the story. It sounds like your son was really motivated to conquer this addiction in his life, that he really did want to find an answer for himself.
He did. He hated it. He really hated it. And he wanted to get better, and he saw that light at the end of the tunnel. And, a month before he passed away, we talked about, okay, if you ever go back to using, your body has been without this for so long, and it could kill you. And he said, "Oh, I'll never go back to this ever. I will never do this." And fast forward 30 days, and he used, and we found him right in his bedroom.
Oh. And that's often happens for a person who's been clean for a period of time, and they go back to using, that their body is not acclimated to that level of the substance, and it's overwhelming. And so it was just that one relapse that took his life. Is that right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
One incidence of use.
Wow.
So you stay in the recovery world to honor him, I guess?
I do. He inspires me every day to do what I do. I continued after about a year of attending the family support group. And when they first began this family support group, it was intended to be delivered by peers with lived experience, not by clinicians. It had originally started off with clinicians, but they wanted it to be delivered by peers with that lived experience.
And I find that a lot in the recovery world, because it's easier to trust or listen to someone who knows what you've been through, maybe not the exact same thing you've been through, but kind of knows what the world really looks like in addiction.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want me to talk about the program? Okay.
So you're running the program, and then now you guys are doing wonderful things with it.
Yes, we are. So the program is called CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training, and it's an evidence-based model that was developed by Robert Myers. And we at USARA have taken this program, and we've modified it to work in a group setting delivered by a peer with that lived experience. We train our volunteers. We have 40 volunteers that are running our family support groups, and we train them on how to use this model. And we have 17 groups in 12 different Utah counties, all run by volunteer facilitators. And there's no charge for our program, and there's no charge for our materials. We use the book, Get Your Loved Ones Sober, Alternatives to Nagging, Pleading, and Threatening, because as family members, that's what we do. We nag, we plead, we threaten, we negotiate recovery. We do all that, not because it works, but it's because it's all we know. So we want to teach families there are alternatives to this. There is a way to help your loved one. Families can recover together.
Tell everybody listening what an evidence-based program is, because I think that's important for people to know.
So this evidence-based program was written by Dr. Myers, and he did studies on it. It's an older model, and the studies were done in the 90s. And for family members, there's not a lot of options.
It's the story of an American held in a dark Venezuelan prison.
Then all of a sudden they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
I'm Becky Bruce. I spent a year working on Hope in Darkness, which now has more than 2 million downloads. Find it on kslpodcast.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
No, I get it all the time where, family members will want the best for their loved ones or their addicts, and the addicts don't want to do it, but they're still left kind of out there in the gray and don't know what to do. And you're right. If they don't start working on them, they're not going to be any good for when the addict does want recovery, if they want recovery.
And that's what we want to do, is we want to teach them and prepare them. So the studies that were done in the 90s, again, there's not a lot of options or ways to compare. So they took our CRAFT program, the CRAFT model, and they compared it to Al-Anon and the Johnson Institute intervention model. And what they wanted to do is find the effectiveness of helping a loved one engage into treatment. So we're not saying we're better than the intervention model. We're better than the Al-Anon model, but we're just different. Al-Anon wasn't designed to help your loved one engage into treatment. Al-Anon is designed for self-care. You detach, and when your loved one's ready, you're there to help them through it. Where CRAFT is more of a model that we can help our loved ones. We can help them engage into treatment. We teach them the skills and what they need and things that are helpful.
Yeah.
We talk about enabling in a positive way, where most people think, oh, quit enabling, just quit enabling. I was told that so many times. What does that mean? How do you quit enabling? It's easy to say, but, until you're there and you're emotionally ready, you can't step back. So we teach our family members, what are some things that you can do that are helpful?
And I think that's important for listeners to understand that, while no program's perfect, an evidence-based program is teaching people skills and behaviors that have been shown to be effective.
Exactly.
And so when they come to your program, this isn't just somebody's good idea or, hey, this worked at our house, it might work at your house, but it's gone through some level of rigor and study so that when we leave there, we know that we have some tools that have been shown to be effective. And so in the substance abuse world and mental health more broadly, people should be looking for things that are evidence-based because they've been proven to work.
Exactly. And our program, we've taken the model, the evidence-based model, and we call it an evidence-informed model because we've modified it to work in a group setting and delivered again by peers. So we're working with the University of Utah Social Research Institute to show the effectiveness of our program. So we do surveys. We give all of our family members a survey on their first session. There's 12 sessions, so 12 weeks, and on their 12th session. And we send the results to the University of Utah. And the results so far are showing that our family members are feeling emotionally better. They're gaining the knowledge and the skills to help their loved one reduce their substance misuse and also engage into that treatment.
What do you think the number one question is when family members first come into your program? What's their number one question?
How do we get them to stop? They want their loved one to just stop. And when they come in and learn that it's just not as easy as getting them to just stop, the most important thing about our program is the communication that they learn. They learn how to interact with somebody that's struggling. Learn how to interact with them in a positive way. Learn how to communicate. What are some things I can do that are helpful? When can I turn around and walk away and not engage in an argument?
Because I want to go back to what you said about enabling. I think when you first hear that word enabling, it's got a negative connotation to it, and most people think that it's a bad thing. But you can enable somebody to get help. You can enable somebody to be better. You can enable people in a positive way, and I think you guys are giving them the skills to help do that. And if we can just change the perspective of the word, we can really start to do some good.
And I agree with that completely because our family members come to us totally broken. And the first thing most of them say is, I know I have to quit enabling them. But they don't even understand what that means. And if you're not emotionally ready to make that step, it's not going to do you any good.
And in talking to people who are struggling with what you're saying, one of the things I've realized is they don't want to stop doing what they're doing because they feel like the only other option is to abandon the child. And, of course, those of us who are parents who can't imagine abandoning your child when they're struggling, so we feel like, well, I'll either keep doing what I'm doing or I walk away and quit on this kid. And, of course, most parents can't imagine themselves quitting on the kid. There are programs that have been shown to be effective, like yours, that are alternatives to just walking away.
And that they've been told so many times as well, kick them out, just kick them out.
Yeah, that's
sort of. And they don't want to kick them out. I would never have kicked my kid out.
Right, you see that they're just going to end up on the street and the problem's going to get worse. And so I know so many parents that are like, well, at least I know where they are if I keep them at my house. But still, that doesn't feel very empowering as a parent because you kind of know maybe what I'm doing isn't encouraging change, but I don't know what else to do.
Another word that gets thrown around is boundaries. You got to have boundaries. And I understand boundaries, but nobody's ever really defined boundaries, and that's where it's kind of a gray area too. The boundary is you can't come into my house and use. Okay, then they kick them out. But you said you would never kick them out. So it just gets all gray and messy. And then what do you do? Because I think there needs to be an addiction for everybody involved. I'll go back to my time at Pinnacle Recovery where they do a family session. And I'm sitting down next to my older brother and my mom, and, they're going back and forth. My parents are, brother and mom are asking questions. And my therapist point blank looks at him and goes, you could all benefit from some therapy. And my brother elbowed me and goes, I don't need therapy. And I was like, okay, I'm just telling you, I think we could all benefit from it because you guys need to know how to deal with me. I need to know how to deal with you. It just needs an education all around.
Totally. And the boundaries thing, boundaries should be set to protect you, not to control your loved one. So I think I went into it trying to control them, thinking, okay, you can't use my house or you're out of here. And that's an empty threat because I wasn't going to kick my son out. And some families get to the point where they do have to invite their loved one to leave. And we're not saying that's a bad thing. Some families are okay with that and emotionally there, and that might be their last resort, that they have to do that in order for them to get better. But as long as we remember that those boundaries need to be set to protect us and not to control your loved one, and when you set a boundary, you better be ready to keep that boundary.
Can't be an empty threat.
Put it in cement. Don't put a gate in it.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that how that works?
Often, yeah. I look for a gate every time.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
Well, and if you're an addict, then you're going to find the gate.
Yeah.
Right? So there needs to be a solid
up,
boundary.
over, or through. Some way I'm getting through that. So if people want to find out more information about Craft and USARA and all the good things you guys are doing, because I know you guys just opened up a clinic up in Ogden. You guys are really doing some amazing things. But I think one of the best things is that most, or if all of your programs are free.
We don't charge for any of our services. We do have our main location of USARA in Salt Lake City. We opened up a recovery community center in Ogden. We have one in St. George. We have one in Price. And we're looking at opening one in Moab as well, looking for a space right now. So we offer resources for those that are struggling. We're a walk-in center. You can walk in and meet with a peer coach. We offer, of course, our family support. Again, 17 groups in 12 different Utah counties that they can get the information through USARA as far as that goes.
And do they start every 12 weeks? Or
we just loop around most of our groups. Some of the smaller rural areas, they'll do a 12 weeks. The 12-week course, and then they'll wait a few weeks and advertise again. But you can continue to go several times through the 12 weeks.
So there's a component that's educational,
yes.
Right? You're learning skills and you're learning to think differently about your family and substance abuse and how it works. But there's also the support component. So even
Absolutely.
if you've gone through the educational part, you can continue to go for the support. Is that right?
Right. And so our class, we have 12 sessions, 12 chapters in our book, 12 sessions in our workbook that we walk through. So we spend about 20 minutes on a lesson, and we facilitate and just kind of walk them through the skills that they need, communication skills. We talk about safety. What's okay and what's not okay. Because when you're living, or dealing with somebody that's struggling, it can get scary. Sure. And there are things that are not okay, and you have to know how to deal with that. We walk them through the lesson, about 20-minute lesson, and then we open it up to some sharing time. And our family members learn from as much from each other as they do from the lesson that we're teaching. Because, they've got resources out there, things that have worked for them, and offering suggestions. This worked for me, this didn't work for me. And the other thing is it's so nice to be in a room full of people
that get you.
Yes, you're talking to you're talking about your loved one, and you're not afraid to say, well, he pawned my TV for the third time, and you see somebody nodding their head rather than judging you. Mm-hmm. That they understand.
Well,
they
I think you said it. When you were a school teacher, you didn't want to let anybody know because you thought it was just happening to you. The reality is it's happening to a lot of people in every neighborhood all across the country. And so to get around to somebody else and finally find out that you're not alone, yes. That's just so freeing.
And it's that first time to share your story. Every time you share your story, the sting diminishes. But what a great place to share your story for the first time in front of people that are nodding because they get it. They've been there.
Yeah. I know when I was in my process groups and I was unpacking all my baggage of 45 years, there was a couple that I held on to because I didn't want anyone to look down. And then I pull it out, and although it's been weighing on me for years and I thought it was bad, people go, that's what you're holding on to? That wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
In comparison, and people would do that and go, look, okay, we've all had a rough go at this, and you're not alone.
Our family members will come to our groups, and then at the end of the class, they'll come up and go, wow, I thought I had it bad. And really, everybody's story, you hear somebody else's story, and it does make you feel better that it's, I can get through this.
Well, that's that connection, and I think that's part of the power of having folks who have been there and run these sorts of groups, because it creates more of a connection between everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's families that come to our group and learn the skills that they need and help others. those are the ones that turn around and say, okay, what can I do? I want to help. Come to a training and we'll train you how to do
That's
a group.
one of the
And
great
it's simple.
things about the recovery world is I see so much genuine interest in helping others after somebody's received help that it's pretty great. It's pretty encouraging.
And I just want them to make a movie of your life because I want to see Charlize Theron driving a minivan, going up to blocking off a drug dealer.
Jumping out 5 feet tall.
Yeah, I think I'd go to that.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I'll buy 2 tickets.
I want to see you bump up and just smash it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and on such a special day for you. And I'm sure your son's up there looking down and going, way to go, Mom.
Oh, I hope so.
Kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're doing. If people want to find out more information about USARA, where do they go?
Go to myusara.com, myusara.com.
Hey, thank you very much. Dr. Matt?
Oh, same. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Certainly what a beautiful way to spend your life honoring your son and helping out other families. I'm excited to have you guys up at the University of Utah and all around the state. It's a pretty special program that you have.
And we want to say, on behalf of Project Recovery, thank you for inviting us into your homes, into your cars, into your ears. Project Recovery has really been a blessing for us, and we can't think of a better gift than to give you guys these stories and these motivational endings and everything that comes along with it. So thank you very much. We want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You're listening to Project Recovery. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did. Give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Dr. Matt, Merry Christmas.
Same to you, buddy.
Dr. Josh, you're not a doctor, but Merry Christmas.
He's a doctor of cool.
That's right.
He is.
You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.